So you sent over some really interesting articles about ICT network administration. Seems like you're ready to jump into this world.
Yeah, it's a career path that a lot of people don't really think about, but it's like essential, right?
Totally. Like we take it for granted the internet just dot works. But behind the scenes, there's this whole army of, like you said, ICT network administrators making sure it all runs smoothly. So let's, I guess, pull back the curtain a bit. From the looks of these RoleCatcher articles, it's more than just plugging in a few
Oh,
cables.
way more. Yeah, forget cables. More like connecting entire universes of technology. We're talking about local area networks, those LANs, and wide area networks, WANs, intranets, the internet as a whole,
Ah,
and then every device on those
right,
networks.
right. It's all got to work together.
Exactly. Servers, laptops, phones. It's the ICT network administrator's job to make sure all of that is, one, connected, and two, secure.
Okay, so it's like being a digital air traffic controller, making sure all the data's flowing, not crashing into each other, no pileups. These articles mention a lot about things like routing protocols and firewalls and software deployments. Is it as intense as it
It,
sounds?
it, it definitely can be, yeah. Imagine a company's entire network goes down. No emails, no file sharing, nothing. Everything just stops. It's the network admin's job to get things back up and running as fast as possible. So you're always on call, always troubleshooting. It's not just about the technology, though. You got to stay calm, cool, and collected.
Right, cool head under pressure for sure. It makes sense that RoleCatcher's data shows such strong job outlook for this field. They're projecting like 8% growth between 2019 and 2029. Seems like companies are really hurting for skilled people who can keep their systems running.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they're willing to pay for the right talent. High demand usually means good salaries. But it's not your typical 9 to 5. You're on call, dealing with emergencies, and you always have to be learning about the latest technologies. So it's demanding, but if you're up for the challenge, it can be incredibly rewarding, definitely rewarding.
Sounds like it takes a special kind of person to really thrive in this kind of role. Definitely not for the faint of heart. But like, say you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, this is me, bring on the challenge. What are the first steps to becoming an ICT network administrator?
So a good place to start is a strong foundation in computer science or something similar. Think of it like learning like the language of computers. But honestly, certifications are huge in this field.
Ah, yeah. These articles mention Cisco certifications like it's the Holy Grail, CCNA, CCNP. What makes those so special?
It's almost like getting like a stamp of approval from, the networking gods. Having those certs on your resume shows employers you've got the skills. And not just the skills, but you can really do the work, and that means something,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to salary.
So you need more than just the theory, right? You got to be able to like actually do it, actually build and manage a network.
Yeah, for sure. It's one thing to pass a test, but employers want to see that you can actually apply that knowledge, that you can walk the walk.
Makes sense. So what are some ways someone can get that hands-on experience, especially like early on?
Well, you could set up a home lab.
A home lab.
It sounds more complicated than it is. Basically, you're just creating your own little network at home.
So like a mini version of what you'd be working on in the real world.
Exactly. It's a great way to experiment,
Yeah.
break things, fix things, try out new technologies.
Without the fear of crashing an entire company's network.
Exactly. You can try out all sorts of things, different configurations, security settings. It's a fantastic learning tool.
That's such a good idea. I bet employers love seeing that kind of initiative on a resume.
Oh, absolutely. It shows that you're, really serious about the field,
Yeah.
that you're willing to go the extra mile. And of course, there are always internships too. That's a great way to get your foot in the door.
Right. Get some real world experience, meet people in the industry.
Exactly. Plus, you might even get paid for it.
Can't beat that. Okay, so we've talked about the skills and the certifications and the experience, but this role, ICT Network Administration, it seems like it requires a very specific mindset, right? Like, are we talking like Sherlock Holmes levels of deduction here?
Kind of. The best network admins are really good at figuring things out. When there's a problem, they don't panic. They just start investigating.
Right, like digital detectives.
Exactly. They look for clues, analyze data, and figure out what's going on.
And then they swoop in and save the day when the internet goes down.
Well, it's not always that dramatic, but yeah, they're the ones who keep everything running smoothly.
And under pressure too, right? Because if the
Yeah.
network's down, everyone's freaking out.
Absolutely. You got to be able to think clearly under pressure. And it's not just about fixing the problem. It's also about communicating what's happening.
Right, explaining it in a way that everyone can understand, even if they're not, tech wizards themselves.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a challenging role, but it can be really rewarding too.
Definitely. Okay, so we've talked about this whole world of like the skills and the mindset, but let's get a little bit more, into the weeds. Let's talk tech. The RoleCatcher material mentioned a bunch of different technologies that ICT network administrators need to know. Is there anything you'd say is absolutely essential? Like, if you don't know this, you're in trouble.
Well, I'd say TCP/IP is definitely up there.
TCP/IP. Okay. For those of us who don't speak fluent tech, what is that?
So TCP/IP, it stands for Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol. It's basically the language of the internet.
The language of the internet.
Mm.
Okay. So if you want to work on the internet, you got to know how to speak it.
Exactly. It's how data gets sent and received across networks. Without it, the internet as we know it wouldn't exist.
Wow. Okay. So that's TCP/IP. What else is like on the VIP list of essential tech knowledge?
DNS is another big one, domain name system.
DNS. Okay. And that's
It's basically the internet's phone book,
a phone book. Okay. I get it. So instead of having to remember a bunch of numbers like an IP address,
which can be really long and confusing.
DNS lets us use like normal words like google.com.
Exactly. It translates those easy to remember names into the IP addresses that computers use.
That makes so much more sense. Okay. So we've got TCP/IP, the language, and DNS, the phone book.
And then there's DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol.
Okay. And this one is?
Basically, DHCP makes sure that every device on a network gets a unique IP address.
Oh, I see. So it's like it's assigning everyone a unique ID number so they don't get mixed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it does it automatically, which is really helpful when you're dealing with like hundreds or even thousands of devices.
Oh, I bet. That would be a nightmare to do manually.
It would be impossible.
Yeah.
So DHCP is essential for managing large networks.
So it's like DHCP is like the organizer making sure everyone has their name tag and knows where they're going at this big internet party. And then we've got, what was that last one? SNMP.
Right. Simple Network Management Protocol.
Okay, break that down for us. What is that?
Basically, SNMP lets network admins see everything that's happening on their network. It's how they monitor performance, troubleshoot issues, even manage devices remotely.
Oh, wow. So they can be like on their laptop at home, but still see everything that's going on with the company's network.
Exactly. SNMP makes it all possible.
That's amazing. So we've talked about like the technical skills and the kind of detective work of troubleshooting, but it seems like there's also a big human element to this job, right? You've got to be good with people too.
Oh, absolutely. You're not just working with computers. You're working with people who use those computers. So being able to explain technical stuff in a way that everyone understands is really important.
Right, because like the DNS server is down means nothing to like most people.
Exactly. You've got to be able to translate all that tech jargon into plain English.
Totally. And what about teamwork? Is that a big part of this job too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Network admins often work in teams, especially in larger organizations. So being able to collaborate effectively, share ideas, work towards a common goal, all that good stuff is super important.
So it's not enough to just be a tech whiz. You also have to be a good communicator, a team player, a problem solver. You know what? Maybe it's not Sherlock Holmes. It's more like, I don't know, a digital MacGyver or something.
I like it.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's like really into this idea of becoming an ICT network administrator, what does that path look like? Where do you even start and where can it take you?
Well, we've talked about the importance of education and certifications and getting some hands-on experience.
Right, but what about actually like getting your foot in the door?
So a lot of people start out in entry-level roles like help desk technician or network support specialist. Those are good ways to gain experience, get familiar with different systems and technologies.
Right. Get your hands dirty. Learn the ropes.
Exactly. And from there, you can move up to more senior roles like network technician, network administrator, and eventually maybe even a senior network administrator.
Wow, so there's definitely room to grow in this field. What about like the ultimate goal? Is there a network boss position?
Well, if you're really ambitious, you can aim for a network architect role.
A network architect. What's that all about?
Those are the people who design and implement entire network infrastructures for organizations.
Whoa. Okay, so we're talking like the big leagues now.
Yeah, it's a very senior role that requires not just deep technical expertise, but also like strong business sense, leadership skills, all of that.
Wow, so you could go from troubleshooting someone's slow Wi-Fi to designing the entire network for a Fortune 500 company. That's amazing.
It's definitely a career with a lot of potential.
Okay, so any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are now like seriously considering this path? What would you tell them?
I'd say if you're passionate about technology, if you love learning new things, if you enjoy a challenge and, maybe a little bit of problem solving, then this could be a really great career for you.
Awesome. Well, that was a fascinating deep dive into the world of ICT network administration, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this.
Happy to help.
And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the world of work.